In this comparative study, I will be focusing on Marxist film theory by comparing Parasite and Lilja Forever through the topic of the commodification of the body and class struggle. Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho, remarkably depicts the parasitic relationship between the wealthy and the impoverished in a ruthless and unforgiving neoliberal capitalist society. Members of the lower class, the Kim family, leech off of the kind nature and generosity of the upper class members, known as the Park family. However, the Park family also leeches off of the Kims by living comfortably off of the backs of their harsh labor. Parasite essentially works to critique the nature of neoliberal capitalism in a more contemporary context that reflects the effects of corporate overgrowth in South Korea that has left many in destitution. Directed by Lucas Moodysson, Lilja Forever is about young Lilja who fights against her circumstances in former Soviet Union in hope for a better life elsewhere. The film explores the aftermath of the illegal dissolution of the Soviet republics. While some do argue that the change was necessary, upon thorough examination, Lilja represents the many young girls who had to engage in voluntary or involuntary sex work in order to get by in a time of virulent socioeconomic transition. Essentially, both films showcase how consumerism ties to the commodification of the body subjected to power in similar and contrasting ways. The depiction of class struggle in the films raises awareness of social class as the audience watches. This enables the viewers to become conscious of their own classes, gaining an understanding of what is class struggle. Class struggle is when society is divided between the bourgeoisie, which is the upper middle class that maintain the establishment by reaping the means of production, while the proletariat is the working class whose only value in the economy is labor power. Both directors have distinct voices, but both use tonal montages that use comparative visuals to move from one scene and onto the next. This influences the mood of the audience that are given insight into the cruel and inhumane creature called capitalism, provoking feelings of anger and guilt and essentially empathy for the struggling social class. In the case of Parasite, the Parks live above ground, the Kims in the middle ground, and the housekeeper's husband underground. Even after the birthday party incident, the positions of the characters remain static, telling viewers that the concept of social class is static and there will never be a slight desire to change that in a neoliberal capitalist society. There are always individuals that will occupy the role of the proletariat for capitalism to function regardless of its occupants. In the same way, commodities are viewed as mere objects to be utilized as a means to show off or exercise power. In the case of Lilja Forever, Lilja lived in an adequately comfortable home before she was abandoned by her mother and evicted from her home by her own aunt so she could have the apartment to herself. Lilja having to live in a smaller and ruined apartment indicates her life descending into an even more impoverished state, making it difficult for her to liberate herself from the shackles of poverty. However, it is Volodya who is stuck in an almost similar position as the housekeeper's husband who lives underground. Volodya is seen like a stray dog, venturing for food, water, and shelter, yet where he lives there is no vitality. When attempting to transcend their class, the proletariat will be continuously shot down by the bourgeoisie, as it is in fact their best interest to maintain this division. The motifs in both films explore one key theme of class struggle, which is people in poverty, regardless of their dreams, often do not have the power to transcend their position and onto the affluent class. In Parasite, the viewing stone that Kiwoo receives from his friend Min signifies Kiwoo's aspiration for wealth. Kiwoo was without prospect, but upon receiving the viewing stone, he is inflamed with desire to transcend his social class. However, during the flood, he reunites with this motif, showing that the flood, representing his downfall, is normal in a neoliberal capitalist society. Him clutching the stone in the homeless shelter is him feeling his goal to free himself from poverty slipping away, regardless of how methodically he plans his uprising. By the end of the film, the viewing stone is set at the bottom of a riverbed, essentially devaluing the stone by placing it with all the other stones, which indicates that Kiwoo's dream of belonging in the affluent class is a dream every working class person has, but can only have while they are asleep. And the flowing river eroding rocks into sediment is just like how the bourgeoisie erodes the dreams of the proletariat. In the aftermath of the birthday party, the Kim family seems to have come out victorious. Kiwoo has saved enough money to buy the Park family's house, and he reunites with his father after years of hiding from the law in the lowest part of the house. However, the scene shortly after reveals that this was only Kiwoo's dream. According to director Bong in an interview with GQ, it would have taken Kiwoo around 564 years to have saved enough money to buy the house and finally liberate himself from the shackles of poverty. This instantly contradicts the mantra of neoliberal capitalism, which has deceived people into believing that with a little hard work and determination, anyone can transcend their social class. One other motif is smell. In the film, the park's revulsion to the smell of Mr. Kim is actually a revulsion to people they perceive as less than themselves. Their desperate desire to escape these smells, like when Mr. Park plugs his nose as he flees from the chaos of his son's birthday party, showing the viewer that those who benefit from capitalism distance themselves from the nobodies, both metaphorically and physically. Essentially, the motif of smell means inescapable poverty. In Lilja Forever, Lilja travels with a portrait of a guardian angel, which is equivalent to Kiwoo's Rock of Prosperity. The portrait reflects hope, faith, warmth, safety, and guidance. However, when Lilja shatters the portrait, it means her restless fear of never knowing the feeling of belonging, hope, and love is becoming a reality because of her circumstances. Another motif is when Lilja gives Volodya a basketball, and him telling Lilja he has never received any possession as nice, making it known that a simple item like a basketball is a luxury in this corner of the world. To us, it is just a ball, but Volodya treasures the item long after it has been malevolently punctured, which can be an analogy for deflated dreams. Much like Kiwoo, it would also take Lilja a lifetime and a half to make a life for herself. This demonstrates that life in a post-communist society is featureless, and meaning suddenly becomes a paradox. All Lilja and Volodya could do is reminisce of their lives before it fell into the calloused hands of free market institutions and private individuals. While it is not a motif, Lilja's slow-motion descent into a patch of mud is suggestive of how little she is now worth in an environment devoid of love or any commodities. It is the mud that taints her blue nightgown that foreshadows her inability to escape from destitution. Both films, through a Marxist lens, conclude that a neoliberal capitalist society and post-communism is inherently unsustainable without the division of social class and unequal distribution of the means of production. Both films, with different cultural contexts, come together to expose and critique the impact of the free market institutions and the private individuals that contribute to the instabilities in society through camera work and motifs. Both films whittle a dreamy narrative about the working class struggling to overcome their disadvantages, but only finishing with a tragic ending that reveals the paralyzing reality of the American dream, which is that through cultural hegemony, the bourgeoisie are able to exploit and commodify the proletariat by fabricating the illusion of transnational upward mobility. Both films are compelling in that they demonstrate how film empowers social change and class consciousness.